right, we should be live. So hello and welcome to Detention Live with the RPG Academy podcast Twitch channel. My name is Michael. I said that backwards. We're here tonight for Detention Live. Joining me as always, my co-host Chris. Chris, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Like when I said it's like that sounds like a smooth intro, but something doesn't seem right. And then I got to the part where it doesn't seem right, but it's okay. Joining us tonight as a special guest co-host is Grant. Grant, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
And again, we're here for Detention Live. We're going to start off with extracurricular, and that's where we just talk about what we've been up to lately, movies, books, TV, whatever we want to share with strangers on the internet. Chris, buddy, what you been up to?
Let's see. Monday, I stayed up late, watched a little sports ball as the Michigan Wolverines won the
sports ball.
Yeah, they won the college football championship. First time since 90 something. You can tell how close I follow sports ball, but obviously it was a big thing being in Michigan because the University of Michigan is a huge thing. And I get to learn all about the controversies they went through this year from a friend of mine who's obviously a big sports fan. And I didn't realize they had that much controversy, which to me was like a little soap opera for him to listen to him talk about everything. Okay. And I was like, I guess so. Otherwise, work got me pretty busy. The wife and I are starting to watch a new show, The Americans, which new to us. I know it's an older show, but it's pretty intriguing. I kind of like the spy versus spy thing. And just watched the first episode of Echo. So I'm excited for that. I like the first episode. I'm waiting to see where it goes.
And it did the whole drop, right? There's only 5 episodes and they all dropped at the same time.
Yeah, but they didn't drop until 9 p.m. yesterday. I'm in bed by 10 because I have to be up at 6. So there's no way I was watching all of them yesterday. So one last night, we'll probably finish them tomorrow, Friday, Saturday type thing. I watch that with my wife. When she's not here, I watch Suits because I try to catch up on that. But I only get to watch one episode at a time. So that's a fun show. If you like legal drama, legal soap operas, I guess is more what it is. It's kind of what it is, but it's pretty fun. So I see Skip's on tonight. Hi, Skip.
Yeah, hey, Skip. Thanks for being here with us tonight, buddy.
So, but Grant, what have you been up to?
Not a whole lot other than just I have a campaign that's heading towards wrap up, and so I've been working on some of the finale stuff there. The household is probably in its some embarrassing number of watches of Blue Eye Samurai at this point. It may be my partner's favorite thing in the entire universe.
It was on my top 10 of the top 23 review thing we did recently. Blue Eye Samurai, very, very enjoyable. I liked it.
Very, very good. Very good. Yes. So she is probably double the amounts of what, at least. She's also writing a fanfic of it. So she's watching a lot of it for research as well. So,
nice.
So that's what's going on. It's hockey season as well, so we're watching a lot of hockey. Our team is pretty bad at the moment, going through a little bit of a slump, but just kind of enjoying the break. Kids back at preschool, so that's kind of nice, and getting a little bit more time, just kind of having the house.
Just wait. So. Mine's out of the house. Yeah. Much better.
Yeah.
Don't have to wear pants every night.
I'm not wearing pants now.
How about you, Michael? What have you been up to?
Little of this, little of that. I'm continuing to play Baldur's Gate like I'm back in college. Just constant, really, really loving that game. It may be my favorite game ever. It's that good. It makes me want to be a better DM. It makes me want to learn how to make combats better because it is just so much fun doing the combats in that game. And it's a really good story. It's got everything. I'm so into that game. It's hard to explain if you're not already into it. If you are into it, then you know. But yeah, it's absolutely a ton of fun.
Yeah, they nailed making D&D combat fun in that game.
Yeah, it's just
just nailed it.
It is so much fun. I'm playing it with my kids, which is cool.
Nice.
I'm trying to get maybe a multiplayer thing going on, just constantly playing it. I'm actually rewatching Daredevil because my kids had not seen that before, and some of the more recent Marvel hasn't been that great. But I really like the Hawkeye thing. I think I'm a Hawkeye apologist. I really enjoyed the Hawkeye show, so I'm like, maybe the Daredevil thing will be cool. So we're 5 episodes into the season 1 of Daredevil. Everyone's really liking it. It's really good.
Get to that good hallway fight.
Yeah, we got to the hallway fight. That's great. They, whatever you want to say about Daredevil, they nailed the casting. Charlie Cox, perfect. I actually like Foggy. I think he's great. Karen Page, top notch, and then Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, maybe some of the best casting ever. And I know they're about to do the new one, but then it got shut down because it wasn't going so well. But I'm of the mind that, like, you know what? I'll applaud them. Like, if it wasn't going well, shut it down.
Agreed.
Yeah, do it right. Because they do have casting was so good. They have Charlie Cox back. They have Vincent back. Let's take our time and do it right. So I was actually kind of excited to see that it wasn't just going to get rushed out. So I was okay with that. Let's see, TV wise, again, I haven't seen any of the Echo, but I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably watch an episode tonight once we're done. I mentioned still watching Monarch, Legacy, and Monsters. It's not my favorite show. It's kind of like not hokey, but it's kind of silly, but I'm enjoying enough to keep watching. And then what else have I been watching? I think that's about it. I don't think there's too much else going on. So we do have a few people watching. Skip's the only one that's checked in with chat, but we have a few people watching. We don't have a monster pick tonight. Speaking of monsters, so we're going to try something a little bit different tonight for our cryptozoology. So if you are in chat and you have a suggestion for what monster we should talk about, throw it in chat and we might take your suggestion. I know I'm doing more. I'm constantly busy watching TV and stuff, but for some reason I can't think of anything else. So we will just move into 10 things because, again, the silly improv stuff seems to be a lot of people's favorite stuff anyways. So if you're new here, 10 Things is an improv game where we're going to take turns prompting one another to come up with a list of 10 things that fits the prompt. It's fun, it's silly, and hopefully we will have a good time. So Grant, you're the guest tonight, which means you get to go first in terms of prompting Chris or I, or you can choose to be prompted first. Do you have a choice or a preference, sir?
I will be prompted.
You will be prompted. I got one.
All right. Well,
I got one that just popped in my head.
Do it.
All right, Grant. Give me you and your partner's 10 favorite things about Blue Eye Samurai.
Oh.
Ooh, okay. Great voice cast.
Nice. One.
Excellent writing.
Two.
Beautiful combat.
Three.
Painterly animation.
Four.
There's a bit, it's a slight spoiler, but there's a bit of friendship magic.
5. True.
Cool setting.
6.
Kenneth Branagh.
7.
Which I guess is part of the voice cast, but still. Speaking of Kenneth Branagh, a truly deplorable villain.
8.
A cliffhanger, which is also a bit satisfying.
Okay. 9.
Okay. I can see that.
And it's funny.
10.
Yeah.
Peaches.
Yes.
Yeah, I love Blue Eye Samurai. I just was so into it. It's not a perfect show for me, but really close, just really engaging, really fun. So not much now negative to say. So yeah, I'm on board.
I'd say the best. I'll use the word sidekick of any show.
Yeah, I love Ringo. Ringo's great.
And I don't know if sidekick's the right term, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
I gotcha.
Yeah, the thing for me that I think I liked best is it did such a good job of being what it was, but it also was surprising. Like when the first episode came in, I was like, okay, this is cool, but I obviously know what's going on. And then at the end of episode 2, I'm like, no, No, I do not know what is going on, but I still had an idea of like, I had a roadmap of my head of like, well, there's like these slight spoilers. There's these 4 people that have to die. There's 8 episodes. So clearly every 2 episodes, one of the 4 will die. And then at the end of 8, we will have wrapped up everything. Spoilers. No, that is not in fact what happens. I was very engaged, very much enjoyed it. And I heard there's a season 2. So again, spoilers. They don't kill all 4 of them by the end of 8, but I'm on board to see where things go after that. So,
and the creators said they got like a 4-season plan. So
see, I didn't know that.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm on board. Happy to stick around as long as they would want to have story to tell. So happy for that. All right, so Grant went, Chris prompted. So I think the way that works is that Grant would prompt me. I think that's how that chain would work. And then I will prompt Chris to wrap things up. I think that's how it's supposed to work. So Grant, what is my list of 10 things?
Since you said you wanted, or were watching Monarch.
Yes.
What are the 10 least convenient things for a kaiju to destroy?
Oh, okay. Cell phone towers.
One.
Because, this, if you can't talk to people. Why is my brain not working? Chocolate factories, because I like chocolate, and without that, nuclear reactors, because that's never good.
Yep.
And then it makes Godzilla bigger too. I
it
think.
would make them bigger, right?
Yeah, that's not good. Costco, just without the samples, and then where you're going to do your shopping. That's not a good thing.
4.
I already mentioned a cell phone. So internet providers, because without internet, no detention, right?
5. Fair. Chaos without detention.
Chaos. Why is my brain not working tonight? Stand by.
Yeah, just don't do what I did and inhale it.
Oh man, I don't know why my brain is just not working tonight. So you've stumped me. Doesn't have to be reality. So I already went with Chocolate Factory. I thought that was like silly enough. Just candy in general. Just stomping on candy. I hate it.
6.
Dice. Because then you got that woo 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 woo, and then they fall on their back, and that's inconvenient for them but funny for us. Let's see. Bubble wrap, just like a whole factory of like popping bubble wrap.
8.
Confetti
9.
factories. That's not good. And ice cream. I don't know.
10.
I'm hungry. If you can't tell.
10.
Yay!
Hey.
That was awful. That was so bad. I'm so sorry for.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's totally mine. So I think then that means I will end this with Chris, who hopefully will do a much better job than I have done. So Chris, what are your 10 best remedies for a sore back?
Rest.
1. You said rest, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Rest. 1. Ibuprofen.
2.
Heating pad.
3.
Massage.
4.
Life special massage.
5.
A little bourbon. Doesn't
6.
hurt. Putting my feet up in the chair.
7.
A hot shower.
8.
The muscle rub.
9.
A little different than you know it. The Bengay. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah. And just having a pizza delivered always makes me feel better.
10. Yay. Yeah, I have bad back too, so I just needed a tip. So, all right. So we're going to move into used books. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. Rather than Grant talking about a campaign that he has played or ran, he has thrown into Discord recently this sort of character creation concept that he has been working on. He's going to tell us all about it. We might even create one together. But again, reminder, if you're in the audience, if you have a monster you want us to talk about, throw it up now because we're moving right along. So Grant, tell us all about this character creation thing that's been going on.
Sure, I had seen just kind of in my TTRPG roaming on the internet, a blog by the name of TARDIS Captain's Blog of Holding has done for the last 3 years kind of a character creation January, but unlike what I put together for the Discord, there are no real like prompts or anything. It's just create 31 characters. I find that like guardrails, creates creativity. So
Okay.
what I did is I put together a little spreadsheet, grabbed my copy of Starforged and Ironsworn because they have those Oracle tables. If you're not familiar with that, they have, you know, 100 theme words and 100, like 100 nouns and 100 verbs, and you just roll up, and then basically you just combine the verb and the noun. Um, and then I just did that for 31 days in January, and then they also have a character description in Ironsworn and Starforged, and I just kind of rolled up just kind of a general descriptor. So basically you have 3 words to describe a character, and then I found like a random generator for fantasy genres
Okay.
and just had that spit out, 31 kind of genres. So for example, you're looking at so January 1, the theme words are inspect, device, energetic, and then it's a low level, and then the genre is swashbuckling.
Okay. So just correct because I'm dumb because I wanted to play along. I thought this would be fun,
Sure.
but I thought it was like a random I didn't realize you went across. So I was like trying to
Oh,
randomly generate
however
numbers.
however you want to do it.
But then it was actually it seemed a little bit odd. It kind of felt like cipher system to me, like the honorable glaive who does things. So kind of thought that's what we were
Sure.
going with, but then it didn't quite work out. But still, I mean, so let's walk through that again. So one more time. So
Sure.
okay, yeah.
So January 1st, so I rolled up the words inspect, device. The descriptor should be energetic. Then I rolled like a D20 and then got like a 1, and then so I called that like low level.
Okay.
And then the genre that was kicked out is swashbuckling.
All right. So let's play along. So how would we put this together? We were trying to create a character. This is just sort of our inspiration. We start with energetic. So what do we think this means?
I can tell you what I came up with if
That
you'd
works
like.
too.
Okay. So I also for mine, and I did not include this for my table, but I wanted to specifically challenge myself even more, and so I gave myself random classes. So I also came up with cleric for this one. So basically, what I created was basically a salvaged piece of farm equipment that was granted sentience by some divine force, and it used its warring power or to become like an inspector to try and find the people that rescued it from the refuse heap.
Okay.
So it's a bit like a Zorro kind of Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes kind of swashbuckling inspector. It is the device. I kind of took this one a little literally, and it's energetic because it's being propelled by some divine force, as well as it is a piece of equipment that needs, fuel.
Okay.
So I took this one real literally, but yeah, for example.
Okay. Chris, I know you were going to try to play along and do one as well. What did you come up with?
Well, I just with ones he came up with, or that one, my first thought, and I went a totally different route, kind of. I went to old school. They used to call them tinker gnomes. So they were
Oh, sure.
gnomes that were inventing things, and they were really energetic. And if you try to talk to them, usually you'd get a very long-winded answer that had to do with, well, the science says with this angle and that angle, we should be able to climb up the wall just by using these little things that I've made. Here, let me show you. So it was always constantly coming up with little devices and stuff. And I pictured, you're throwing a tinker gnome, so to speak, on a pirate ship, going out there looking for some, fantasy, the ultimate invention that he's heard about is somewhere on some lost island. Something along those lines, or, the magical tools that'll create the thing that'll save the world. And he's out there on a quest to find it. That's more kind of the route I went. Ooh, I had this weird tickle in my throat all night.
And so one of my players came up with a kind of a Han Solo-y character in space, looking to discover some sort of giant's, super ancient structure. And then I believe he used Starforged for that. So
again, just my apologies. So this is something that your group is doing kind of like as an exercise throughout the entire month, and you are collecting the characters that they're creating. They're not necessarily the characters that are going to be playing the games, but they're like NPCs, quest givers, sort of like it's helping to like flesh out like a world, or is it just like a for funsy? Let's just creative
just
exercise
for funsy, get the creative juices flowing. Just kind of like, I might use some of mine to make NPCs, because I'm a forever DM. So like, I create, what I'm doing is I'm also just kind of like bashing my head, making sure I fully understand the system that I'm trying to like really get into here. And for the character creation, because the next campaigns we're going to do are going to be full level up advanced 5e.
Okay.
So I'm using this to like really learn the character creation. They're using different systems or what have you, and just kind of experimenting. I'm kind of using this as like to brute force my way through understanding the ins and outs of the character creation system.
Okay, no, I think that makes total sense. Skip
And
says,
then if I get some NPCs out of it, cool.
even better, yeah. Chris, Skip says it's the bourbon.
Water. All I'm drinking tonight.
Well,
It's
maybe
just
it should.
water.
Be
Maybe it's the
bourbon.
absence of bourbon. Then.
Yeah, maybe it's the
It
absence
could be.
of bourbon.
Yeah. So the ones that I had come up with when I did my random generation is I am a breach who is cursed and was shifty, low level, uplit, which is like uplifting literature, like, books about positivity and just like overcoming, that kind of thing. I got stuck right away on the breach. Like I guess I like my head, I was sort of thinking this is someone who is like a demolitions expert. Like they are someone that breaches building. Like I'm thinking like military, like breach.
Sure.
But then I also thought it could be someone who like somehow moved through like a breach, like World of Warcraft style sort of thing. Like they went from one world to the other, which could be part of like the shifty and the curse. Like they are shifting through realities. There's a lot of multiverse stuff happening in like popular media now. So I was thinking along those lines. So maybe it could be like a Sliders situation, the TV show. I mean, not like hamburgers, where like they shifted against their will or somehow were cursed and now they are lost and they are trying to get back home. But then that doesn't really help me come up with any sort of like, that's more of a situation of who they are, not the personality. So I kind of got lost here. I don't think I did a very good job. So I thought I would check in with you. Muddling Through also checked in to say they were checking in. So thank you for checking in, Muddling Through.
I mean, what you just said, Quantum Leap.
Yeah. And that's pretty uplit, really. So, I mean, it's sci-fi, but it's pretty uplit. I mean,
that to me
at least some episodes for sure.
That could be a fun game if you have a couple players that all jump in, and maybe it's interesting to okay, my personality is going to jump into this body, but here's your new stats. You're now, hey, you're a 49-year-old chubby guy who just shoveled his driveway and threw his back out. Good luck. That's me, by the way. but it could be interesting for somebody who has never been 49 and throwing his back out shoveling to try to role play and throw in
Yeah, I
different
have
situations.
no idea what that's like.
Yeah, you're not 49. Technically, neither am I, but close.
Yeah, I'm really close to that. So I guess the thing that this makes me think of, just kind of in general, is when you are, as a player, about to create a character, like what sort of other inspirations have we used or would we suggest for someone to use? I don't want to get too far away from the whole prompt either. So I want to make sure that, we're not just like jumping off board, but it made me think about, so I'll start with you, Grant, since this was kind of your idea. When you're in general coming up with a character, or maybe since you're the forever DM, if a player comes to you and says, I want to play a character, but I don't know, like, what are your go-to examples for advice to give someone like, hey, this is what I would use for inspiration?
So, like as well, and a lot of this is what I actually did throw in here. I love the Ironsworn Oracle tables. It's just an Ironsworn, you can pick it up for free. Starforged, I believe, is for you can buy, but Ironsworn, I'm pretty sure is for free. But they have just a bunch of very neat tables that you can just kind of roll, and it'll give you good random words, and you can kind of, I mean, I don't know if either of you have played
I
Ironsworn.
have not.
Nope. But basically, it's GM-less. So basically, it's just you. It can either be solo, or you can play with a group, or you could play with a GM. But if you're solo, it's a solo journaling game, and then you just kind of like roll, gives you words, and then you kind of make the story out of the words. And so, like, I just like grabbing a couple of words out of a hat and then just kind of helping people, like, because I don't know, I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to pick the words myself. I'll just roll some dice and grab some words.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's kind of fun. And then kind of the more disparate the words are, sometimes the more fun situation or character you kind of get. In my mind, or, ideally, other players at your table have a good idea, and then you can kind of build off of what they have. Or like Scurvy Knave said, go to his TV shows. Any good archetype from a TV show, or a movie or a book. Songs can be cool.
Yeah, I believe Taylor. Sorry, it's been a while. Taylor talked about that once. They were using songs to like help generate like plot, just like mood, like vibes setting sort of a thing. So different like CDs that they were listening to. This was a long time ago. Spotify streams, whatever the case may be, playlists was helping to generate ideas for like campaign sessions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then take a character from pop culture, switch the gender, boom, new character.
There's a lot of TV shows that happens with. It seems like there's this like, hey, we don't have any ideas. Let's just take something we've done before, switch a couple things, and then put it back out.
That's right.
Chris, any thoughts from you? Like again, you're also often a GM, but any thoughts when you are creating characters that helps you settle on style, tone, theme, personality?
For me, I usually start with personality. What personality do I want to play at the table? And then I build the mechanics around that. And I don't care if the mechanics don't necessarily fit exactly. I'll roll the dice and see what happens. Sometimes it's fun if the mechanics don't fit, because then you want that kind of the struggle. I like that. Mostly when I make characters, I just think of, what do I not get to do in life every day, and what do I want to do? Do I want to fly? Sure. All right, I make Superman. This week I don't want to fly. I want to be Batman. That kind of thing. Kind of my mood too, a little bit. And then just what I think will be fun. I do use songs a lot, listening to the music and get that kind of mood. That helps me get more in the mindset of the character and kind of their motivations and kind of their general attitudes. But for me, I don't have a real complex process. I just sit down and think of something and I go, oh, I like that. And I just go.
Muddling Through says play your own personality, but with one change, which you cannot break, as a suggestion. I don't want to say I have shallow characters, but I generally tend towards comedic characters. Like I'm often sort of the jokey character. And again, I'm also someone who's willing to play any role. So if it's an established game or like we're starting from scratch and we're doing session 0 type stuff, ding, take a drink. And it's like, this one person, like, I really want to be a fightery type or tanky type. Someone else wants to be the wizard. Like, okay, I'll play the rogue or the support. Like I will fill in. But usually my advice, especially if it's someone who's new or newer to role playing, is I'm like, just come up with like 2 things and then just lean really heavily into those 2 things. Because it's hard to come up with a whole new personality. Like there's, that's not easy to do on the fly. So one of the characters that was pretty memorable for me is the 2 things I came up with is that they wanted to be a chef and that they were very forgetful. Like those were the 2 things that I hung my hat on. It turned out they were Warforged. I think we were playing in an Eberron style game. And so then it kind of evolved to they don't eat. So it was interesting that they wanted to be a chef, but they could not taste food. So they were constantly asking other people, what does that taste like? Like anytime they would go to anywhere to a restaurant, they would sit down and they'd be like, can you tell me what that tastes like? And then they would like try to make something and say, okay, now taste mine. Is it the same? Type of a thing. So it became sort of a funny bit they were doing. And then also the forgetfulness. It's like, hey, we're ready to go into combat. Oh, wait, I forgot my axe. So we start the combat. I don't have my weapons with me. So, again, lean into those 2 things really heavily to the bit, and then you kind of expand from there. Because I'm never going to be able to create a full personality, but I can create a couple different things that I can then mold into different situations to hopefully make them funny enough that other people are laughing. It's not just me. And it's interesting enough that it doesn't become aggravating, because the forget your weapon thing is funny once. If it happens all the time, it starts to become a pain in the butt. But if you can get away with it one time, I think it works.
I think the setting you're playing in is a good start too. If you're in a Shadow of the Demon Lord game, okay, that's going to determine how you're going to start a character off versus if you're playing D&D. If you understand the settings, Shadow of the Demon Lord is not one you're going to kick the door down. Generally, if you play that type of character, it's good thing it only takes 10 minutes to make a new one. Keep rolling characters. So that can change how you're building a character too. That way you really get into that setting and that mindset. Or, if you're playing a superhero game, that's going to change your style too. So that's kind of one of the first things I look at whenever, if you said to me, hey, let's go play this game. All right, what system, what setting, what kind of rule system are we going to use? That kind of stuff is kind of where my mind starts, and then I build from there.
Well, I think, and Grant had mentioned that, like, somewhat jokingly, but it's serious at the same time, is that, you take an established character, you change something about them, gender swap, or, a setting swap, like you take a Batman, but you put them in, D&D, or you take a barbarian and put them in like superheroes. And that's where you start. First session, go, and then as the character should evolve over time. And to me, that just makes sense as a creative person, as someone who likes to role play. Often the way stories are built is you have a character who's introduced, and over time you learn more about them and they evolve. And I think that kind of mirrors what it would be like in a role-playing thing. Like, I don't know yet what this person is other than they're forgetful and they want to be a chef. But, 3 sessions in, I'm presented with an opportunity to interact with an NPC that brings out a side of me that I hadn't even decided on. But in the moment, I'm like, okay, well, this is what makes sense. I've now established the truth that I'm also protective. And then maybe I'll kind of work backwards and go, well, why am I so protective of this particular NPC? Is it my nature or theirs? And it kind of mirrors learning more about a character over a series, a show, a book, a novel, a series type of a thing. To me, that just makes sense because, like I said, I'm not going to be able to sit down and create a fully fleshed out character because I'm not fully fleshed out as a person. Like I'm very inconsistent. Like one day I'm like, peace and love, and the next day I have road rage so bad that I just want to throw a brick out of my car window at some doofus who's blocking the street. Like I'm full of inconsistencies, so my characters are as well.
That's fair. But you don't want to get too crazy on the inconsistencies, because then the other players will get frustrated.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's easier to be more consistent with a character that you're playing, because you can just be like,
Yes.
well, you can apply the logic of the situation every time, the emotion, and just like my character isn't going through the same things I am as a person, where it's like work's doing this, the wife, the kids, good or bad or whatever the case may be. It's a little bit different. I'm not
Fiction's
a method
always
actor when it
easier.
comes to role playing.
Yeah, fiction is always easier.
Fiction is always
Yes.
easier. Yes, absolutely. So Scurvy mentions that they have found that brand new players to the hobby will often start with one personality in the beginning and change completely before that first adventure is over.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Okay.
I've done it. I've done it with NPCs. It just kind of, like you said, we as people are inconsistent, and that can leak into our characters for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Muddling Through mentions a similar agree to that. The setting and tone can influence choices. I've brought this up many, many times. Like our first ever actual play was called Made Men here at the RPG Academy now, like 14 years ago. God, we're old. And, very famously, we had established that as an actual play. We had 3 or 4 sessions under our belt, and then we brought in a new player, and no fault of theirs, completely my fault as the DM, they brought in a character that did not fit what we had established. Basically we were playing sort of like a mobster, Sopranos, Goodfellas sort of like setting, and then someone brought in a character that was more like a Three Stooges character. Like they were just silly, and it's just like the tonal sort of shock of, oh wait, these not meshing together at all. So obviously that person wasn't there for the whole beginning. They kind of came in. It's not their fault, totally mine. But yeah, absolutely. Unless that's the intent, like there can be fun can be had with that, straight man in a crazy world, person that's out of place, out of time. But that needs to be like a conscious decision, not just is what happens. I think just like if you want to play the alpha character who doesn't want to go along, but everyone agrees that that's okay because we know over time that that's going to shift to something else. Okay, we're willing to put up with the hassle now for the payoff later is different than someone who just wants to play a lone wolf, and that's just there is no forethought of how that's going to evolve over time type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else about character creation? Again, I think most of us are mostly DMs, so I guess it's more from like a DM side, but like, are you okay if 4 people want to play fighters, if 4 people want to play wizards? Do you ever say, hey, we need a balanced party? Is that ever something you consider or not, Grant?
it is not something I ever consider. If they want to play that, either I can balance it or we will find fun in the imbalance.
So I'm absolutely the same way. But I want to know about it, which again, I'm hardcore into session 0. Again, take a drink these days, where I didn't used to be. Like I used to be where just people would show up. I have 4 people show up. I have no idea what they're bringing to the table. No one else knows what they're bringing to the table. And it was chaos. But today, if everyone's like, hey, I happen to roll a bard. I'm still going to know weeks ahead of time that I've got 4 bards coming to the table. And great, that's going to be an amazingly fun time.
Sure.
But I want to know and prepare and kind of, massage the campaign that we're going to play, or the short sessions or whatever, to fit that, both for my own sanity, but I want to give them the fun. Because if they have 4 bards, they probably have an idea of what that campaign's going to be. And I don't want to like serve them exactly what they want. There's fun in the unknown, but it also, I don't think a hardcore dungeon crawl with like a bunch of non-intelligent or non-speaking monstrosities is going to be as much fun. Maybe like a one-off, but you need to establish that, like, they're in a town, they're there for a Battle of the Bands concert, that kind of thing. And then like on session 7, they get thrown into the dungeon and they have to fight their way out with people who have no appreciation for music. That's fun. But the first session, I don't think so.
Yep.
Chris, I kind of spoke over you. What were you wanting to say about that?
To me, play what you want to play. I'm with you. Let me know ahead of time so I can kind of gear the story in that direction. the big thing if somebody goes, oh, we don't want to play, wizards, for example. What's your hook? Why are you all together? What's that common thing that brought you together? Otherwise, you're just four wizards that are why are four wizards going to travel together? Are you after some spell components? Are you after some magical item? Is this now going to be a weird competition between all of you for it? Like, how am I going to balance out four personalities that may have the same goal?
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff I want to flush out before we start. And then try to figure out how am I going to give you each your moment in the story to match that.
Right.
But yeah, play whatever you want. I can make it work. And if I can't, well, we'll roll with whatever didn't work and still have fun with it.
Rocks fall, everybody dies.
Exactly. We will find our fun somewhere.
That's right.
So somewhat connected to this, I know I've mentioned multiple episodes now, the last 3 or 4 I've been on, how much I've been playing Baldur's Gate and how much I love it. And probably like 2 or maybe even 3 years ago now, I did an episode with someone, and the co-host of that is escaping me. But we talked about video games and just like what can video games teach us about being game masters. And I talked about, I think I was playing Mass Effect at the time. I don't remember. But I really want to do an episode just about Baldur's Gate 3 and like what kind of lessons we can take, not just from like combat, because they do combat very well in that game, but also like story. Again, have you been playing it, Grant? Are you familiar at all with it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Chris, you haven't.
I haven't finished it. I'm pretty deep into Act 3 on my first playthrough, but
so no spoilers, but it kind of makes me feel like 13th Age. You're familiar with that game, right?
I am. Yep.
Okay, the one unique thing. All of the origin characters, they all have a one unique thing that makes them different from every other wizard. And it's tied into the story. They all have their subplots. So whether you're maining with them or you have them as a companion, and the variety of companions that you bring, I have found the more fun for me has not been combat as like, oh, well, the wizard and the thief and the barbarian fight this way, as much as the barbarian, the thief, and the wizard have these conversations about what's going on. Because, there's some that lean towards good and you can, you can gain approval or disapproval based on your choices. So it really is, to me, the role play aspect, story aspect. I'm having more fun finding a variety of characters that I want to bring together. Combat's fun too. Don't get me wrong. The game is so much fun when it comes to combat, but I'm having more fun exploring those personality interactions. And so as a DM, like, am I allowing players to create characters that feel unique? They have their niche, but they also rub up against, in the good ways, Chris, no laughing, with the other characters that gives them that chance to have those interactions that I, as a DM, enjoy, just like sitting back and watching my characters play players play those out, type of thing. So I would love to, at some point, and maybe if you would want to do that with me, Grant, I just think there's so many lessons we could pull out of, that we could take and translate to a pen and paper role playing game.
I think so. And like you said, even Mass Effect or those games, it's like, because the combat, you're competent enough to wing it with pretty much any combination of those groups, I'm sure. But yeah, the just the side conversations they have is like Baldur's Gate and like Mass Effect as you're like going up an elevator or whatever.
Yeah. Like, those are the great little moments where you just like have to sit in and enjoy. I don't want to stay on there too long because I know Chris hasn't had a chance to play it yet. Right. But I mean, you play Diablo. I don't know if it's I know it's similar in some ways, but I don't know if it works the same as like, the party structure and the interaction structure. But
you play one character.
Okay.
If you team up, it's with somebody else.
Gotcha.
Diablo is build a character, farm equipment, kill things.
Yeah.
There is a story and they have seasons, but it's not heavy role playing. It's mostly, can you make a character that kills the main things, the big bosses?
How many numbers can you get to fly off at enemies?
Yeah. I mean, and there is that in Baldur's Gate 3. You can absolutely play it that way, but I have found more fun in the role playing aspect and the stories aspect of it.
But yeah, I mean, like my favorite sessions as a DM are when I barely talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's just like my players are just I get like a movie out of it, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. Again, and I think, some of that comes from time and experience.
Mhm.
Sometimes it just comes with, the right kismet of players and personalities, like we try to foster it, I think, as DMs, but sometimes it just happens. We're lucky enough to be there
Yeah.
when this happens. But yeah, it's like I just like take the hornet's nest, shake it up, and then decide to watch it for like an
That's
hour.
right.
It's like, yeah, go. That is absolutely a ton of fun. So I guess then my question would be, what can we do as DMs to try to foster that? Like, what aspects would you say are important? What are considerations we should keep in mind to make sure that that's fun for them as well as for us? So, Grant, I'll start with you.
Being willing as a DM to just kind of let like a silence creep in, and then just like, okay, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to say anything. They got it. And then trust your players to actually have it, I think, is the thing that works best for me. It's just like, I can bite my tongue for a little bit here, and they don't need me to step in, and then they can just set up an interesting situation, keep your mouth shut, and let them fly.
Yeah. I think this is one of the difficulties that I have had with translating my in-person games to virtual games, is that it's much easier when I'm in person to sort of read the table and know when silence is good, and my silence will allow that to start to emerge, versus they don't know what to do. So they're silently waiting for me as the DM to step in and go, okay, here's the next thing, or this has changed, or this is the avenues. You can still do it. I think it's easier in person to kind of feel that out. But one of my big pieces of advice to give to DMs is to not be afraid of silence. If your players are not role playing as much as you would like for them to, or maybe as much as they would like to, sometimes that's because as DMs, we are feeling that void of silence of like, okay, everyone's silent. Okay, this happens next. And you just got to sit back and let that silence draw out until you realize, okay, is this a silence that will eventually be filled by role play? Or is this a confused silence where everyone's looking at me metaphorically or physically because they don't know what's happening? Chris, any thoughts on silence or how to draw out role play in your players?
I mean, silence could be good. Sometimes that just means everybody's thinking and processing. I feel I'm successful as a GM when I'm quiet and they're talking.
Mhm.
That way they're actually interacting with each other. So I try as much as I can. My goal is to get everybody interacting with each other and not just with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've run games where everybody just looks at me and goes, now what's next? What do you want to do? Well, what do you mean? What do I want to do? This is your story as much as mine. So where do you want to go with it? So if I can get them interacting with each other and they're making the decisions, I think I'm being more successful. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if I put a bunch of prep in and they don't follow any of it. I'll use it in another game.
That's right.
Yep.
Or I'll use it later in that game. So I've had players say that to me, oh, I don't want to ruin all your prep. What prep?
Yeah, what prep?
That's usually my answer. I'm like, well, didn't you prep a lot? And I go, and usually I'll fakely hold up a blank piece of paper and then go, oh, so you're just letting us do it. I'm like, well, no, actually I have some ideas, but I don't care if we use them. To me, half the fun is when they don't, and now I have to make up something new on the spot.
Right. Otherwise, we could just write a book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it goes my whole. The reason there's a person on the other side of the screen rather than a computer is so that we can adapt and change and incorporate. Again, don't get me wrong, Baldur's Gate has done a great job, but there's also there's probably millions of lines of code in that game, and thousands of hours of deciding what might happen. That's not something I can do, by myself. One of the other big things that I like to do to try to foster role play, and I have found a lot of success with this, is just say, this is a role play scene. And I got some pushback online a while back about that, and I think maybe I just didn't explain it very well, which, internet's like that. But basically it means giving them a time when that's all there is to do. Like I like to role play while other things are happening in the middle of a chase scene, in the middle of a fight scene. But I did the thing where I'm like, okay, you're all sitting at a table. I just want you to talk to each other for a little while in character. And I just kind of like, I prompted them to do that. And, just like everything else, the first time it was a little awkward. Second time, second session, third time, third session, it got to the point where they knew it was coming, and it got a lot more sort of free flow, and people knew it was coming. And, eventually people would be like, can we have a scene around the table? Because I want to talk in character to some people. I think, I didn't like force them to, but letting them know that that's what this was about. Just like when you roll initiative, you're in combat, right? So it was like kind of the equivalent of, this is a role play scene, so let's role play type of a thing.
Every other pillar has basically its markers. So you might as well just mark out role play. So yeah.
Not every group every time, certainly.
Sure.
Crafty Hawkeye. I was talking about Hawkeye earlier. Jumped in first time chatter, so thank you for hanging out with us. It says it helps if each character has 1, a reason for adventuring, and 2, a character goal.
Yes.
Completely agree with that.
Agree.
Hopefully those are somewhat aligned, or if they are at odds, it's interesting. My character goal is X, but I'm adventuring for Y. How does that make me feel? Like, why am I doing it if they're unaligned? Like, you can get some juicy character moments.
I would also even add, to help with the role play, like a bond, like a solid bond with one or more of the other player characters.
Yeah, good comment.
They're siblings, they're rivals, whatever, and then they can play off of that. And that facilitates its own role play. And that kind of goes to what Muddling through the choice paralysis. It's like, well, how do you act with your sibling? And there's pretty much like 3 ways to do it. You're either going to fight with them, you're going to whatever.
Right. Stand up for them or ignore them.
Exactly.
So, and that's, again, a big thing I've done, especially now that I'm playing with my kids, is on our session 0 or first session, we always create bonds with each other. How does your character know their character? Like, I don't do the thing where you meet at a tavern anymore. Like, I haven't done that in a very long time. When we sat down to physically play the first game, all the characters know each other. And I say, you don't have to really like each other, but you have to like each other enough that you're willing to go on this adventure together. Like, that's just sort of a boilerplate. We're not going to play unless you've already agreed that we're playing the game today. It just makes my life a lot easier, and I've got a lot more smooth from that. I had something else I was going to say and I lost it. So, Chris, what do you got while I'm thinking?
I mean, we've talked a lot about online silence and communication issues. I think one thing that I've noticed helps me with especially new players online, use your hands to signal. Like, I've done it where I'm like, okay, I'm going to monologue here for a minute. So I want everybody to kind of listen to my character. I'll do this just so people know, let me talk. And then when I'm done, I'll go, I might, that way people don't feel like, oh no, I'm stepping on his toes, or everybody's waiting. When do I step in? Things like that. That way you can still see some of that nonverbal communication you lose by being online. Also, I think it's fine to just tell people, hey, if I step on you, I call it, I didn't mean to. I just, something popped in my head, oh, Grant said this and I want to jump in right now. I'll apologize later if I stepped on you type thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Assume good intent, again, especially if you're playing online where maybe you're roboting out, or maybe you forgot to unmute, or you muted, forgot to unmute, and like, there's lots of different things that could cause that to happen. Just assume that they meant it under the best possible circumstance and figure it out later, I think.
Yeah, I've only ever played hybrid.
Oh, okay. So you've always had some home, some in person?
Yep.
See, I don't know if I've ever actually done that, where I've had one person in the room and multiple. It's either everybody's in the room or everybody's online. I've never done it in the middle.
I don't super recommend it, but I don't have a choice. My gaming group's split over all 4 different time zones, so
it's a challenge.
And I want to play, and that's how we make it work.
Yeah.
But
we did it for a number of years with Redemption, with Andy being 2 time zones away. She would remote in, and we did a lot of, we weren't streaming, but like I said, a lot of hand signals of, this meant I'm going to cut in. I'm going to cut you off.
Yep.
Like, your character's going on a monologue and my character wants to cut you off. I'm going to do this. And then I that was me telling you, this is a role playing moment, not Chris saying, all right, Michael, I'm done listening to you. This is the NPC wants to jump in. We're having an argument type thing.
Mhm.
I think that can help.
To kind of lead off some of that, we have used like Zoom chats, private
Mhm.
chats to each other to be like, hey, I'm going to cut in right here,
Yeah.
or that kind of thing. Just, or yeah, hand signals work too, but sometimes because I am managing people in my living room as well as on the screen. Yeah, the chat, sometimes I use Discord chats a little bit too, to be like, hey, I'm going to do this in about 3 seconds. This is going to happen.
I don't think I could top that fast. Like I would be like, I'm about to cut. It's too late. I missed it.
It's
Yeah. I was
I'm
going
not saying
to.
it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's why we would
Yeah.
do these
Mhm.
little things. So this is going to happen like now. That way it wouldn't. And then we always checked in with each other, which we never put on the show, but we do now. We're streaming. We have those intense moments. We'll
Mhm.
check in. All right, Michael, that you're cool, right? We just had an argument. Like that's all in character, right? You're not mad at me.
Right.
Those type of moments. So
Mhm.
that way people, yeah, I'm good, man. That was awesome. I loved it. High five. Which I think is important if people do get into those intense
Mhm.
emotions,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't bleed over into real life where, Michael and I had this cool argument and I think it's cool. Michael's really still mad at
Right.
me for something we said in character, which was in character.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what's going on in other people's lives, and maybe I drew from a well of deep resentment towards someone I work with for this
Right.
argument, and so I am feeling real feelings, and that's one reason why I was able to do such a good job. But it's sometimes hard to separate that. So I think it's just, again, hopefully you're playing with people that you care about. Ideally
Yeah.
friends, people,
Ideally, yeah.
or you're friendly with them, family. So why would you not want to take a couple moments to say, hey, are you cool? Maybe it's take 5.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to say, again, more aimed towards newer people, because I have found that newer people often struggle with the role play aspect. I think it's easier to grok, hey, we're going to kill things for part of the game. You're going to roll the D20, higher numbers are better, than how do you feel about this? So what I have found is sometimes it's easier to ask those questions and say, for example, like Sarah, in your backstory, this happened to you. This is the reason why you're adventuring. And just today, this situation happened, which how do you feel about that? And it can help prompt, even if it doesn't prompt role play, it can be like introspective role play. Because
Mhm.
again, as I get older, I have found that a lot of times I gain fun from stuff that no one else sees. Just like in my
Mhm.
head, I'm like, how does my character feel about that? Or, I'm making decisions for what I might do next time this happens. And I enjoy that aspect. It's kind of, I guess, like creative solo play. So sometimes I'll just ask me like, well, what do you think about that? And if they want to say, actually, yeah, I would be mad or I'd be sad or whatever, great. But sometimes it's just for you, and just take with you and you think about for a little while.
I agree.
All right.
Agreed.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yes.
That's
Role
right. You
playing is
got it.
fun.
Unanimous.
Fantastic. Well, we've got several people in chat. This is great. I love that you're here. Some of you for the first time, or you're chatting for the first time. We do detention generally every other week on Wednesdays. Sometimes things happen, but that's generally what we do. And it usually has sort of a loose structure of what we're trying to accomplish. Today, we've just kind of decided to talk about character creation and then also like how to sort of invigorate role play at your table. But usually every episode's kind of its own thing within these categories. So before we move on to where have my fingers been, where we will either lose everyone or solidify them as fans forever, Grant, any final thoughts on character creation, anything along what we've talked about so far, any final words or anything to wrap up?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, my group has really been enjoying this character creation January. I picked a system that is probably way too hard for me to really keep doing because my goodness, level up advanced 5e, that is a long character creation process. But because take D&D and then
Add.
add a bunch. So, but I don't know. I like it. And then what I think really helps with character creation, just as general, is give yourself some guardrails and then just try and get creativity out of borders. I know that's kind of like I don't know, kind of a square thing to say, maybe,
Well,
but
I don't think
like,
so. I think restrictions breed creativity. Like I really
I
do.
think they do.
It's that whole like
Mhm.
if you have a blank sheet of paper and you can draw anything, some people will take to that, and other people are like I don't know. And I think
Right.
much for like when I was a kid, we had those things where like they would be like a J, sort of like a half S, and they would
Hmm.
say, okay, take that now, use that and draw something.
Yes.
I loved those
I
prompts,
love that too.
and I
Yeah.
think that can be the same thing. So if you're a GM and you're like, okay, I want to play in a world where there are no dwarves, that's fine to say there's no dwarves in your world and to say,
Hmm.
hey, can I play a dwarf? No, you can't because they're all
Nope.
gone. That's part of the game. So I think sometimes those restrictions actually do help. But to take it back to Baldur's Gate 3 for a moment, let people respect themselves. Like I think that's one of the
Yes.
most genius things that game does
Yep. And
is
I've
like,
always done it with my players too in
yep,
TTRPGs. It's like if you're not liking it, just I don't care.
right.
I will let people take feats retroactively. It's like I don't care.
Yeah. I want you to have fun. We're all
Hmm.
learning together. I'm self-admittedly the worst rules guy on the planet. So if someone makes a bad choice about a feat or a spell or a
Hmm.
weapon or whatever, and 2 sessions in, they're like, I'm not having fun doing this. Change it. I'm not going to say you
Change
are
it.
stuck with that and, or kill your character. I'd rather you
Hmm.
just, your character's always been a wizard. So they were a sorcerer last week, they're a wizard today. Who
Yeah, who
cares?
cares?
Just
Who
have fun.
cares?
Okay. So
And then, like, maybe if you want to throw a story reason in, sure.
yeah,
But otherwise, just like, I don't care.
I mean, if you have a
Have
good one,
fun.
sure, but don't feel like you have to, because then
Right.
you can get that thing where,
Exactly.
like, if 3 people do it, then that becomes the story of like, are we in a multiverse? Are we,
Right.
variants of each other? Maybe, but it doesn't have to be. All right.
Right.
So sorry, Chris. Again, any final thoughts here about anything we've talked about so far?
Uh, I always tell people with character creation, play what you want, be brave. Nothing's a dumb idea. Bring it to the
Yep.
table. We'll have fun with it. That's my philosophy. And I do what you do or what you just mentioned with, hey guys, I want to GM this game. Here's the idea. Here's the world I want to play in. Please build a character that fits in this world. Let's go. So, like, for example, Dragonlance, I did ask them not to play Kenders because Kenders are can be tough to play if you don't understand them. And if, I had a couple players that don't know Dragonlance. So I said that could be very frustrating for a player that doesn't understand why does my left shoe keep ending up in the Kender's pocket? That's just what Kenders do. So everybody didn't have any problem with it, and everybody made characters they like to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, Not for the Views has jumped in, also first time chatter. So, welcome. Thank you
Yeah.
for being here. I
Hello.
hope you enjoy your time with us. We were just wrapping up what is normally called used books, which is in detention shows. It's kind of the uh, largest section. But today, we are going to move on into our Where Have My Fingers Been, which is our second little improv game that we do here. For the record, we are bad at this, so we are not trying to teach anyone how to do this. This is just for us to embarrass ourselves. But Where Have My Fingers Been is an improv game where we'll take turns prompting one another again to create a short scene that involves 2 or more, if you're feeling froggy, little pantomime puppets that are involved in the scene. And we try to have a beginning, middle, and end. I usually leave at least one of those out because I think it's funny. Grant, you are the guest again tonight, so you get to choose if you'd like to be prompted first to create a scene or prompt Chris or I first to create a scene.
Prompted.
Okay, so once again, we're going to prompt you first. Chris, do you have something for Grant? If not, I can come up with one.
I mean, I can come up with something real quick.
All right, but we have to
Um,
sing the song first. That's a requirement. So, Grant, do you remember the song?
Where have my fingers been? I say, where have my fingers been?
You got it in one.
like he's been
Got
doing
it in
this his whole
one.
life. Um, let's go with something that came up in my household recently. Uh, two, we'll just say partners that their partners are gone, and they're in the house for the first time, and they're not used to having control of the TV remote.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you reprompt that?
Probably too complicated. For example, in my household, I always have the TV remote. So when I'm
Mhm.
leave, my wife gets lost as to what to do with it. So you have two people who aren't used to having control of the TV remote are thrown together and said, watch some TV.
Hey, you see that on the table? Yeah, what's that? I think it's the remote. Oh, okay. Are we going to use it to watch the TV? Yeah, but I don't know how it works. Oh shoot, me either. All right, well, let's just sleep instead.
And that's where
There
your
you go.
fingers have been?
That's
And that's where my fingers are.
All right.
very close to what happened.
All right. So Chris prompted Grant, so that means Grant would then prompt me. So again, this is for
Oh,
New York Tater. If he ever comes back, this is for you, buddy. Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
okay, so
My dog is barking, by the way, if you can hear that. I don't know if it's coming through.
two people walking a bear that they think is a dog.
Okay. So you said you just adopted this thing, right? Oh yeah, yeah, it was great. I went to the adoption agency and it just looked so lonely, and it was in a cage that was meant for like a lot of animals, but there were no other animals in there. And you didn't think that was weird? No, I figured all the others got adopted because he's kind of a big boy, and take a lot to feed him. Um, did did do you know what a bear is? Yes, of course I know what a and that's where my fingers have been.
Hey, surprise ending there.
Yeah.
Surprise! I
Surprising.
love
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Just cut out something in the middle. All
All
right.
right.
Muddling through had to drop out. Thanks for being here. Hopefully we'll see you next time. All right. So Chris, I will prompt
All
you.
right. Where have my fingers been? I said, where have my fingers been?
Your fingers are at a crime scene where it appears that a man has been mauled by a bear.
Uh, wow, that's a mess. Yeah, yeah. What do you think happened? Well, I think something chewed on this. Oh, yeah, looks like a leash. Who would chew on a leash? And why is the leash as big as my leg? I don't know. That's a good question. Why don't you chew on it and see if it works? That is silly. Why are you now chewing on it? Well, you said you wouldn't. Well, look, we got to figure this out. So let's follow these giant footprints that might be from something roughly 8 feet tall and about 1,000 pounds. I don't think that's a great idea. If it already ate one thing, how do we know it won't eat another? What are the chances of that happening? And that's where my fingers have been.
Oh, we have a whole like cocaine bear thing happening here.
That's right.
All right. So that is where have my fingers been. That's about as good as it gets, folks. So hopefully you enjoyed that. The last thing that we normally do here is called cryptozoology, and this is where we take a look at a monster, usually from D&D, but it doesn't have to be. We talk about ways that maybe we have used these monsters in the past. We kind of brainstorm some ways that we could possibly use them in the future. Normally, we come to the table with a monster pre-chosen. Didn't do that tonight. We asked the audience earlier if anybody had any suggestions, and Skip had mentioned talking about minotaurs and specifically the difference between minotaurs in like standard D&D versus Dragonlance. If you're not aware, Chris is currently running a Dragonlance campaign, the official one that came out, I think late last year or earlier last year.
Something like that.
So, Chris, can you give us the overview of what Minotaurs and Dragonlance are like as opposed to quote unquote standard Faerun
Okay.
Minotaurs?
In Dragonlance, Minotaurs are an intelligent species. They're not your mindless monsters that are stuck in a maze or the mindless monster in the dungeon that just wants to eat you. They are pirates for the most part.
Scurvy Knave says they're Klingons on boats.
Oh, that's a great description. Yeah, they are. Most of the time, they do dedicate themselves to Sarganas. Hopefully, I said the name right. One of the gods that's considered one of the evil pantheons, but they're more about the honor and glory that they get as a minotaur. They're not necessarily out to prove that minotaurs are, misunderstood. They're out there just to do what they want for the minotaurs and for themselves, in a way. You did have a few that were honorable. Kaz the Minotaur was one of Huma's friends, and Huma's one of the big knights that you hear a lot in the stories. There were a few others, but mostly they were more like, I mean, you could actually play them in the Dragonlance setting. They were a playable race or species, however you want to say it now. So not quite your typical just mindless, Mongol eat you. They were more Mongol punch you, then eat you, then prove he was better kind of thing. They're also not depicted quite as bestial. Like the feet aren't quite as described as being quite the cloven hooves, because they do describe them wearing boots at different times. But they still have the horns and kind of the Minotaur face. I like it because it's a different concept on the concept of a Minotaur. I think it was kind of the early ideas behind not everything is just an evil race that wants to kill. I think it was a neat spin on them. And I think it gave you another avenue for your bad guys to come in on, especially if you want to do a setting on boats. Because D&D didn't really have that, but now you have kind of these pirates that are set up. And, if you're out there traveling and all of a sudden you go, oh, that's a Minotaur ship. You're like, oh, let's set the sails. Let's go faster. Go faster. Yeah.
So I do have a question.
Not quite like the Reavers and Firefly, but, similar.
Okay. And I, as always, probably am wrong. But I used to be into like mythology. Like I was that, that nerd in school, in grade school, that read all about the Greek mythology. And my understanding is that the Minotaur was trapped in the maze and could never get out. And that when they threw a victim into the maze, it was because they also could never get out. And eventually they would run into the Minotaur and the Minotaur would eat them, right? So I had never understood in D&D why Minotaurs have like, they're really good at getting out of mazes. Like it should be, I want to play a Minotaur who gets lost in like a 2-bedroom apartment because they are so bad at figuring things out that they keep getting turned around. Because I feel like if the Minotaur lives its entire life in the maze and it never figures the way out, it must not be good at that. So I feel like they did a disservice by making them good at getting out of mazes.
Yeah, and I'm not a mythology buff. Were they put in there and they couldn't get out, or were they cursed that they could never leave, but they knew their way through the maze?
See, then that could be the thing that I'm misunderstanding, because it's been a very long time since I've read any of those myths, but I thought it was because they couldn't get out, but it could also be that they were cursed to not get out. But I still think it's funny to play a Minotaur who gets lost in like the kitchen.
Oh, yeah. That would be me some days.
Yeah. So Grant, any experience with Dragonlance Minotaurs or non-Dragonlance Minotaurs?
So I am playing, or I'm running, or just about finished with Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, which is Greek adjacent. And there are you can play as Minotaurs. There are Minotaur. I have Minotaur NPC who hangs out with the party. His name is Bullbug. He's an Olympic athlete. He's a very fun guy.
Is he a discus thrower, javelin?
No, he's a runner.
Oh, okay. 50-yard dash.
And a wrestler.
Okay. Makes sense. Does he skip leg day?
Never. But he never especially skips chest day.
Really tiny arms, though.
Yeah.
Real tiny arms.
Yeah.
But yeah, Minotaurs are fun. There's a bad guy Minotaur in that campaign who's pretty fun. He less goes through mazes and more can just phase through walls. If I recall, it's been 3 years probably since I had to run that bad guy in that campaign. So, but yeah, Minotaurs can be fun. Again, it's like I like the non-race essentialism where everybody can be everything in a heritage, which is like what I would think should be true for sentient species.
You'd think.
Yeah. To an extent, you still can't escape your nature, especially if that's how you're brought up. But that's a whole nother philosophical debate.
Yeah. I've not really used Minotaurs a lot. I have only ever used them as enemies. I've never ran in a game where they were a playable class. But I do like them as not necessarily like the big bad, but a big bad, an obstacle where yes, you can fight them, but is there a way around them? Is it, again, you're in a maze and you can just figure out the maze, or is it there's there some way to trick them, or is there something they want, like they want out of the maze, like, hey, if you don't kill me, let's figure this out together. I like to use, in general, I like to use monsters in ways other than just, hey, hit this with a stick until it stops moving. But they are a fun thing to hit with a stick because, I think they're well enough known in like popular culture that people can clearly visualize. Sometimes when you talk about it's an ug tug, or whatever, what some of these things hard to conceptualize. But when you say it's a minotaur, I think most people can kind of reference that, or there's popular media. You can find some references online pretty quickly. They're very strong. They are very stubborn. They're going to charge at you with their head down. They're kind of like Rhino from Spider-Man game. If you play a Spider-Man game and there's a Rhino, at some point you are going to get in front of something, yell out, and then get out of the way so the Rhino hits the thing behind you. That's exactly how a Minotaur should play in a D&D game. Like the way that you should win is force them to stick their horns into like a tree and then run away type of a thing. Like if you're not doing that, I think you're doing it wrong, either as a player, as a DM, or both. All right. So anything else on minute? Oh, go ahead, please.
I've used them a couple ways. I've played them as they're more intelligent, and they're trapped in the maze or they're cursed, and the PCs find out that they can free the Minotaur, and then once they do, they actually learn that that was a bad idea because now he's free.
They were trapped for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've also played them that they're the mindless monster, maybe not necessarily in the maze, but you have to then defeat them and get whatever you need. I have more fun with any monster making them a little different than what they should be. There's some sort of surprise in there. And I think Minotaurs, you can do that because you have a lot of options with them, especially if you throw them in Dragonlance. Because like I said, they're an intelligent species that have goals and they have a plan as a group of what they want to do. And their faith, depending upon what timeline. But anyways, it's another story.
All right. Well, very cool. Well, thank you again for the suggestion early on for that. So the last thing we usually do here, the very is audience Q&A. If anybody who is watching would like to ask some questions of the three of us, usually it makes sense for them to be role-playing game related, but they don't really have to be, but we do reserve the right not to answer something if we don't want to. While we're waiting for any questions that might come in, I always like to go around the horn one more time and let people kind of introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves, and then where can we find them if you would like to interact with people online. Grant, I think you said you got rid of social media, so you pretty much can't find you anymore.
I sure did, and it's been lovely. I'm on Discord though. You can find me hopping around in the RPG Academy Discord.
Yeah, that's mostly where I can be found. I am still on Facebook, and I do have a Blue Sky, but I don't really use it a whole lot. But I am officially off of Twitter forever. I will never be going back unless something drastic changes with the ownership and direction of that company. I don't miss it, though. I do miss, again, I met some very lovely people through Twitter. So I do.
My Twitter used to be extraordinarily well curated, and I do miss that, but I'm never looking back.
Yeah. Hard sell.
I got Discord. That's fine. That's all I need. So it just reminds me of like the 90s chat rooms, and I love it so much.
So the RPG Academy Discord is a closed community, but we will let anyone in who asks, but you do have to ask. It is an invite only sort of situation. So if anybody is watching now or listening in the future, then you would like to join us there, just reach out. You can email me at therpgacademy@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. When we first started it, it was open, and we had a bunch of spammers jumping in and dropping stupid stuff, so we just closed it, and it's worked out so far. Chris, where can people find you if anyone would like to?
I do have a Blue Sky account, just Chris Burlew. I check it maybe once or twice a week. I don't do much with social media. I just don't have I don't say the time, but it's just not my thing. Discord's usually the easiest place to find me, or here every other Wednesday, or starting up on it'll be the 25th, I believe. We're going to get back into doing the Dragonlance. Nice. We took some time off for the holidays. It was just too much with everybody having kids and schedules and stuff. So we're going to get back to it on the 25th to finish that up, which honestly, we're real close to the end, I should say. So that'll be fun. I think, Scribbing just asked me when it's going to be started. So, yep. Traveling shenanigans.
Are there any time traveling shenanigans?
Not with this group, I don't think. But Maybe.
No.
I don't know.
Never say
Never
never.
saw that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Time
They do
travel
a
is
lot of that
always
in
an
there.
option.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, Redemption, we're going to be starting up back up in February, but we're switching to every other Tuesday instead of every other Monday. Since I have freed up some time in my schedule, Tuesdays work a little easier for me. Mondays, usually I'm a little mentally spent. So it's a little easier for me to switch over to Tuesdays. I think we're starting up like February 20th-ish. Don't quote me on the exact date because I don't have a calendar in front of me. Otherwise, yeah, find me on Discord. That's probably the place I check the most, to be honest with you.
All right. I will mention I'm going to River City Con this coming weekend, so 2 days from tonight. Myself and my youngest will be going to Louisville, playing at River City Con. We've got signed up for some Call of Cthulhu, a D&D 4E game, and Alien, the Alien RPG with Mr. Dragonbane, who was our guest last time. He's going to be running that game for Jacob and I, so very much looking forward to that. Yeah, I think that'll do it. So again, the couple of you that were brand new tonight, I hope you had a good time, and hopefully we'll see you back in a couple of weeks. We do a ton of different stuff here at the RPG Academy. We have well over 1,000 episodes in our catalog, interviews, reviews, actual plays, discussions, interviews. If you name it, if there's something RPG related, we'll probably talked about it at some point in time. But we will end tonight, as we always end things, by saying, if you're having fun,
You're doing it right.
You're doing it right.
thanks, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.